Okay, welcome to another video. What we're going to be doing today is taking a look at MicroOS, which is an immutable operating system from openSUSE. Now there's a few ways we could have gone about this. They've got quite a lot of different images available and they have versions based off either Leap or Tumbleweed, and we've gone for Tumbleweed, which is openSUSE's rolling release, as it should give us a bit more of an up-to-date desktop experience. Now, I've never used this before, so we're no doubt going to run into some roadblocks along the way, but it has been a topic of conversation in my Discord server, and it's made me really want to try it out. So I'm running the installer right now, and the size for the ISO, which is quite small by openSUSE standards, is 1.8 GB, and the system requirements for this are a minimum of 1 GB RAM and 20 GB storage. So with that being said, let's run through the installer. So we want English UK, and next. So I'm intrigued to see how much this differs from the standard openSUSE installer, so we're going to sort of have a little look out for things that are currently different in this version. Okay, so system roles. So we've got a few options here. So system roles are predefined use cases which tailor the system for the selected scenario. So the default selection is MicroOS, which is an OS designed for single purpose systems optimized for large deployments. Minimal installation, provides no services by default, and you install software with transactional update package in, and we're going to get into the whole transactional updates once we're actually at the desktop. We then have the container host, which is optimized for hosting container workloads and includes the Podman container runtime by default, so much like Fedora Silverblue with the whole Podman and toolbox stuff, which is pretty cool. And then we have two options here for the desktops, and they're both currently in alpha. And you'll notice the only real difference, aside from the desktop you're going to be using, is the sort of software store you're going to be using to install applications, which are going to be flatpak for the most part. So of course GNOME will use the GNOME software package, and KDE will use the KDE Discover store or the Plasma Discover store. As I'm a KDE guy, we're going to go for that, and I'm pretty sure this will include the latest version of KDE, which is version 5.20. So let's go next. Okay, user account time. So openSUSE are quite good on security, and on these videos I always use a very simple password, and I think openSUSE will have a little moan up at me about that. We'll have a look in just a moment. Next. There we go. Do you really want to use this password? Yes, I do. Right, okay. So I wonder how much of this is interactable. Let's click on software, but before we do that, so it's selected the correct drive, and as you can see, your default file system is going to be BTRFS, and that's what it's going to utilise to sort of roll back system snapshots and all of that good stuff. So can we jump into software? We can, but as you can see, this doesn't include nowhere near as much as what the standard versions of openSUSE does. But yeah, I guess you could tweak it a little bit. Let's have a look. If we click details, yeah, so we can sort of add a few things here and there, but we're going to leave it on the default and just keep moving. Okay, is there anything else we might want to change here? No. Right, so what we're going to do now is install this to disk, and I am going to time it just because this is a lot smaller than the standard openSUSE ISOs, and I'm quite intrigued to see how much faster the install is. So stopwatch has started, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so the installation has complete, and that clocked in at around about 3 minutes and 33 seconds. So with that being said, the system is now going to reboot, and we're going to be planted at our desktop. Okay, so here we are at our desktop. Before we start installing things and having a little play around, we are just going to see what this base install does include. So we're just going to go into the About section now so we can confirm what version of KDE we are using. And we are using KDE Plasma version 5.20.2, which is good. And I also have a video of all the new features I like the most in that version that you can click up there if you want to watch that as well. So let's get that out of the way. Let's see if it includes any default wallpapers out of the box. No, but it does have the new sort of shell wallpaper KDE 5.20, so let's go ahead and apply that one now. Did we not select it? Let's do that again. There we go. Okay, cool. Application time. I don't think it's going to have a lot installed out of the box, but we might have a few surprises. So already we can see it's quite a minimal install with just the amount of categories there. We have 4: Internet, Settings, System, and Utilities. So in Internet we have just KDE Connect. I'm quite surprised they haven't decided to choose to sort of have a web browser installed out of the box, even Firefox or something, so that's quite interesting. But we'll install a Firefox, but we'll use the flatpak applications to do that with, as that is pretty much the way you're meant to go with this OS. So in settings we have just the KDE system settings, and we will set up the desktop to how we like it in a moment and see how harder it is on this kind of distribution compared to others. So in system now, we don't have a whole lot. We have the Dolphin, which is of course our default files manager, console, and then the super user mode for the terminal, and then the Discover store, which is where most of our package installations are going to take place. And then in utilities, we just have the one of Kate, the text editor for KDE. Okay, so I've got the system settings open here because one of the cool things about KDE is just how easy it is to change the themes, but due to the nature of this operating system, you might find it's going to be a little bit trickier than others. So as you can see, we do have both Breeze themes installed out of the box as well as the default openSUSE theme, but we're going to hit a roadblock when it comes to things like this. I'm going to imagine it's going to spit out an error in just a moment. And there you go. As you can see, the installation has been unsuccessful. So the way we're going to install some themes to get the desktop how we like it, we are going to be using the transactional update. And I think there's a way you can jump into like the transactional update shell and then start adding things from there as well. But we'll save that for just a moment. So let's get out of this for now. Now we're going to jump into the Discover store and install some applications. So Discover, I'll tell you what, let's use our KRunner, and while we're in here, let's also go into the settings for KRunner and just center KRunner. There we go. Okay, Discover. Okay, so it's unable to load any applications. Please verify internet connectivity. I'm pretty sure we're connected, but we'll have a look anyway. So console has not been bound to the keyboard shortcut keys, so we'll have to do that in a moment as well. So let's just do a quick ping of Google, and we'll do that 3 times. Okay, so my internet appears to be connected, although I have been having a lot of issues with it as of late. But what we're going to do then is jump into the settings here and see what might be going on. Okay, so it's got an option for flatpak default, add source, add FlatHub. Okay, so I assume there's no actual sort of software repositories for it to grab the applications from. So I guess if we just click add FlatHub, okay, type in a password, and then that should go ahead and add the FlatHub repository, and it should start populating just another password prompt, okay. And that should start populating the Discover store with all of the Flatpak applications from that repo. So I think that's done. We got no confirmation, but I'm just going to imagine it is. And there we go. So we can jump into applications, and as you can see, it's now started to populate it with all of the applications that are hosted with FlatHub. Now we're going to want to get a few things, Kdenlive being one of them. We're going to want GIMP, we're going to want Firefox, and we're also going to want a backup tool. So although this is quite a safe way of sort of running your system with the whole sort of immutable and you can roll back and all of that good stuff, it's still always good practice to have a backup tool, and I think Deja.dop is included in the FlatHub repo, so we're going to go ahead and get that as well. But first things first, let's go and get Firefox, which is pretty much a necessity, and I'm surprised it's not included. So password prompt, another password prompt. Okay, so I'm sensing we're getting a lot of password prompts while we're using this distro, which is another password prompt, okay? Okay, that could get a little tedious, but after that it should be all good. So what I'm going to do now is just pause the video, install a few more applications, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so our flatpaks have been installed. We didn't install loads, we just gone ahead and got Deja.dop, Firefox, and Kdenlive for now. We'll probably add some more throughout the rest of this video, so let's just make sure they are in our application launcher. There's Firefox, but we are missing an icon. Let's keep moving. Multimedia, Kdenlive. Again, we are missing an icon. And now in utilities, we should also find backups, which will be Deja.dop. Okay, so we're missing icons, but we're going to go ahead and install some icon themes anyway. But before we do that, there's going to be a few things that we're going to need, because I don't think, judging by the lack of packages that are included, we're going to have all that we need to actually grab these packages. For example, do we have Git? We don't. Do we have wget? We don't. So what we're going to need to do is use what's called the transactional update, package install, and install a few applications that way as well, and then it will sort of rebuild a snapshot from that. So let's give that a go. So I do believe the command is transactional update pkg install. So let's test it out with htop. Let's get wget, let's get gimp, let's get make, gcc. So I like latte doc. Let's get latte doc, and I probably will want a few more things, but we'll do that after a few reboots so we can show you how to roll back from different snapshots, etc. So we'll save some other packages for when we get to that part of the video. So I think that's all we're going to need for now. So let's go ahead and hit enter, type in our password for root, and let's see how this all works. So it's checking for new version. Right, so it's now found the application, so let's press Y. So it's using overlay FS, I think I just saw there. So it's now going to add all of the applications. I do believe we will have to do a reboot though in order to actually use them. Okay, it's nearly done. I do believe you can also add sort of third-party repos as well this way. Okay, so the transactional update has finished. Please reboot to activate the changes and avoid data loss. So the new default snapshot is free. So what we're going to do is do a reboot, and we'll be back in just a moment. Right, so we are back. So let's just see if it's grabbed those icons yet as well. So let's see if we can get some icons now for Firefox and stuff. There we go. So our icons have now appeared after a reboot for our flatpak packages. But what we really want to do is add some theming and icon packages of our own. So we're going to open up Firefox. And there we go. So what we're going to want to do is get the Arc KDE themes. Let's go to Arc KDE GitHub. Yep. Okay, so we're going to grab this one from the Papyrus development team, and we're also going to want the Tailor icons. So let's go Tailor icons KDE GitHub. And there we go. Right, so let's see what the installation directions are for this one. Okay, so we're just going to use this one here, the wget, which will also run through the install.sh script. So we're going to go ahead and open up a terminal, but before we do that, and to save me a whole lot of time, we're going to add the shortcut for console in our shortcut keys. So let's add an application, console, and where are we? So console, active shortcut, Control-Alt-T, and apply. So now we should just be able to summon our terminal like so. Perfect. Right, so we want to copy this over, but we need to go into what's called the transactional update shell, I do believe. So we're going to go sudo transactional update and shell, and this will get you into the actual shell. So we'll see how that actually works. So sudo transactional update shell. So let's type in our password for root once more. Okay, and we are in. Right, so I do believe we can pretty much add anything we want to this now, and we're basically, well, it's opened it up in a shroot now in snapshot 4, which will be the new default snapshot once we do a reboot. So what we want to do is go ahead and grab this. Where are we at the moment? Let's just go into TMP for the moment. Okay, so we want to run that, and let's see how that goes. Okay, so that's apparently added it. So deleting Arc KDE, installing. So I'm just going to imagine that's done. We'll check it out in a reboot and see if everything's working as it should. And now we want to go ahead and do that same thing with the Tailor icons. So what's the score here? We're probably going to need to clone this GitHub and then just do the install sh like so. So let's grab this URL and let's go into git clone, copy that bad boy over. Okay, and now we want to cd into it. Right, so what is it? Install.sh. So I'm just going to chuck a sudo there as well, see what happens. Install.sh. Okay, so it's had an issue with some commands not being found for GDK update icon cache, but I still think that's probably actually gone ahead and installed it. So what we're going to do is exit this and then do a reboot, and let's see if our theming is actually there or if we've done something a little bit wrong. So let's give it a go. So let's exit that now. Okay, and now that will tell you again to reboot to activate the changes and avoid your data loss. So let's go ahead and do that now, and I'll be back in just a moment. And we are back. Right, it's now time for the moment of truth, and let's see if we managed to get our icons and theming to actually install. So first of all, let's go into the global theme package. Okay, so I can see Arc Dark, perfect. So let's go ahead and apply that and see if that's all working as it should. Brilliant, so we've now got a nice new theme there, and what we want to do now is go into the icons, and as you can see a lot of the icons are now missing. So if we go into icons, perfect, so it has installed them despite the error we got with the GTK cache stuff. So let's go ahead and just apply Tailor Dark and see if that's working as it should. Perfect, so it does appear that all of our icons and our theming is working nice and easy, and let's just make sure everything has got the icon and there's nothing missing. Yeah, we're looking so good. Good so far. Okay, nice. Right, let's start setting this desktop up to how I like to use things then. So let's just move our panel all the way to the top. And let's bring the size down to about 32. No, smaller still, 30. That should be just about right. Okay, let's add a spacer. And then let's just drag that around about there. We are going to be removing the task icon list, or the icon only task list, because we are going to be using latte dock at the bottom, and we're also going to be putting a global menu up here. So let's also move our pager to about there. It's in the up and down sort of mode, so I might change that to a sort of one row left to right. But for the moment, we won't worry about that just now. So let's remove that. And now let's go to add widgets, global menu. So I guess once you've gone ahead and installed all of the applications that you do need on a sort of daily basis, and you don't tend to need a whole lot else that's not included in the FlatHub repo, you might be just about okay with this kind of distribution. And actually, I'm quite a big fan of the way they do things here, especially with sort of all of the immutable systems that I've used so far. I do think it's going to be utilised a lot more in the future as we go forward. Right, let's close that off now, and now let's just close all of that, and let's open up latte dock. We did install it, didn't we? Yes, we did. Okay, where are you? There we go. So let's just edit this up a bit and make it how we like it. Dock settings, advanced. We got an icon there. Okay, never mind. Right, so I'm just going to bring this down to 100 on both the show and hide. And now let's go into the appearance now, and I'm going to bring that down a whole lot to about, let's try 34. Yeah, that'll be okay. And I don't like icon zoom, that's you've probably heard me say in previous videos. So we're going to bring that down. So it's got Firefox.desktop there, but I'm just going to imagine, because of the defaults there, it's not got the actual flatpak. So hopefully we can actually add that and pin it and we won't have any issues. So for now, we're just going to remove that one. Okay, so we're also going to want a little bit of a background for it to make it a bit more of a dock as opposed to kind of like a plank. So let's do that as 95. Okay, and I also like to remove the analog clock. Right, so I think for the most part, that's how we're going to use things as it's set up. So now let's start opening up a few applications and see how everything works together. So we want to open up Firefox. And we're going to pin that to our dock now. Pin launcher. Right, so let's make sure that Kdenlive and everything is all working with the global menu. Obviously, Firefox doesn't tend to have out-of-the-box support for global menus. But as we can see, our global menu is now working with Kdenlive. Absolutely fine. So let's go ahead and just pin that as well, because we will be using that to edit this video. So I edit all of the videos that we do mainly on the distribution that we're showing, and that's kind of another little sort of final use test that I do to make sure everything works as well. Cool. So that's all running as it should. Now, we didn't install GIMP, did we? But we will go into that in just a moment, and we will do that with a flatpak. I've just noticed we've got screen edges on, which I absolutely hate. So let's just turn screen edges off at the moment. Yeah, I'm pretty much anti-screen edges, hot corners, all of that kind of stuff. It just sort of takes me out of whatever I'm doing, because I'll often accidentally trigger it and get a bit triggered myself, to be honest. Cool. Right, so what we want to do now is do a quick few tests with how you're actually going to roll back changes once you've sort of installed something and you might have messed something up. So what we're going to do is think of an easy-ish package that we could add that we might want to remove. NeoFetch could be one. So now let's open up a terminal again. And now we want transactional package install, which is right about there. And just type in NeoFetch. Root password. Okay. Right, so that's now going to go ahead and install NeoFetch. Again, the same old way that it has been doing, creating a new snapshot. So our new default snapshot is snapshot 5. But what we're going to do is go into snapshot 5, make sure that NeoFetch is working and everything else. And then we're going to roll back to the snapshot before it, which is probably going to be 4. And NeoFetch should probably not be there, depending on how it all works on openSUSE and MicroOS. So we're going to do another reboot and be back in just a moment. And we are back. So now let's open up a terminal and run the NeoFetch command and see if we get the output that we expect. Perfect. So now what we're going to go ahead and try and do is do a rollback using the BTRFS snapshots, and then this shouldn't now be there. And while we're in here, let's just have a little quick look at how many RPMs we do have installed, bearing in mind we have added a couple ourselves with Zipper. But we've got 950, so under 1,000, so it is really quite a minimal installation that you are going to be getting. And so far we've added around about 11 flatpak applications. So another reboot, and then we're going to get into sort of the sort of starting screen for openSUSE and see how that all works as well. Okay, so we're at the openSUSE MicroOS boot screen, and what we're going to go ahead and do is go to this final option here, which is Start Bootloader from a read-only snapshot. Now, it doesn't appear to have anything that says 4 on it, so I guess if we just go back 1, that might be the one without NeoFetch. Time will tell, so let's go ahead and do that and cross our fingers. So now we're going to boot into openSUSE MicroOS, and as long as we've chosen the right snapshot, NeoFetch should no longer be there, because what it does is it builds a new snapshot every time you do a transactional update. Okay, so I can see quite a lot's been different now, so I don't think we've got all of the icons and stuff that we've also applied, so I think we've gone into quite an old snapshot. So if we now just go into our terminal, let's also just confirm that NeoFetch is missing. It is indeed. So what we're going to try and do now is then go back into the snapshot that we have all of our applications installed on, and hopefully everything works as it should. Okay, we are back and everything is back to normal. So it does appear that I might have chosen the wrong snapshot at first, or just done something a little bit wrong there, but we are back in business now. We did go back a bit further than what we wanted to, but now we're back into sort of the current snapshot that we were using with all of our applications back right where they belong. Now, of course, another couple of features of just this whole way of doing things, you are going to have the toolbox option as well. So let's just chuck a sudo there and type in toolbox, and now that should create a new toolbox, and we should be able to sort of test applications out from within inside the shell. And I know when we done Fedora Silverblue, we could also do it with like GUI applications, and we could even create a shortcut on the host here that enters the container and then pulls the application from that, and it's a bit like you're running it on your actual host OS. So we're now in a root toolbox, so we should be able to just very simply just type in zipper in htop, and all of these applications won't require you to do a reboot. So again, it's a good way to test things out, or it'll be especially useful for developers. So hopefully that works as it should. So that's just going to go ahead and just build the repositories, etc. And then we should go ahead and be able to just run htop to confirm that it has indeed worked. So let's install that now. And now if we open up htop, bang. Perfect. Okay, I'm really liking this so far. So what we're going to do now, just to wrap things up, is do a reboot, see how much RAM this uses on a fresh boot. And then I think we're just going to wrap it up there and maybe give some final thoughts and suggest who might be, you know, a good candidate to use this as their kind of like a daily driver. I'm not sure it's quite daily driver ready yet, but I've got a feeling it might get there. Let's do a reboot and see how much RAM we are using. Okay, RAM wise, we're not looking too bad, to be honest with you. We're under 700 MB, and we have made a few changes here, and we're sitting at around about 660-ish MB on a fresh boot. Now what we're going to do is just have a look at one or two more things and then give some final thoughts. Okay, so there's obviously quite a bit that we haven't gone in today's video, and there's quite a lot of documentation you might want to read up just to see how everything works and all of the stuff you can do with this type of operating system. But while we're here, we are just going to show how the whole sort of cleanup works with these snapshots, etc. So as you can see, we have a few options. We can do cleanup snapshots, cleanup overlays, and all of that good stuff. And we're just going to do a quick test with cleanup. So what we're going to do is summon a terminal and type in sudo. Do we need sudo? Let me just double check something. Transactional update. And now we want to type in cleanup. We're probably going to need to use sudo. So now let's chuck a sudo in the front of it. Oh, we've spelled that wrong. I have to keep my keyboard like off my usual position to make space for the microphone. So I'm always a bit fiddly there with the actual keys. Right, let's try that with sudo and make sure that that's working. So sudo, type in our password for root. Okay, so checking for new version. Right, so that's added some important flags and cleanup algorithms to snapshots, and that has mark unused snapshot 4 for deletion, mark unused snapshot 3 for deletion. Transactional update has finished. Okay, I'm not too sure what snapshot that we are on though, are we? So that's marked unused snapshot 4 for deletion. So let's do a reboot and see what happens when we get back into our system now, and if that's actually deleted the snapshot that I want to be using. Okay, so we are back, and it appears that we are indeed on the correct snapshot now, which I do believe was number 5 if I remember correctly. So now if we open up a terminal, let's just open up NeoFetch and make sure that's still there, and that way we know that everything has gone according to plan. Perfect. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Obviously, you are going to want to go ahead and install a few more applications than what we've done in today's video. either using the Discover store with the flatpaks, and there's most of what you're going to need in the sort of FlatHub repository, and anything that you would rather have on a sort of a system level from the repos, you can just use the transactional update. But for the most part, you are going to find plenty in the actual FlatHub repo there that should keep you going. Now, this kind of distribution is not for everyone, and it's still kind of a bit early to really think that this is there to replace as a daily driver for most people. But if you're someone that doesn't really like to sort of fiddle about with too many things, and once the system's created, you want it to kind of stay the same for the most part, and if you wanted to sort of make a few changes, you've always got the option to roll it back. That's who this distribution's for. If you're someone who likes to sort of fiddle with things on quite a constant basis and change the way it looks and try different things out all of the time, then you might get a bit annoyed and find all of the constant reboots tedious. But like I said, once you've got it set up, it's going to be pretty rock solid for the most part. You will run into the odd roadblock here and there, but I'm sure everything can be overcome with a little bit of research. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there, but overall I'm quite impressed. It's one of the, I wouldn't say the best sort of immutable systems that I've used so far, but it's definitely one of the better ones, but that's because I've got a bit of a soft spot for openSUSE. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.